check now on the lineups. Now, England have made those 2 changes, as you said. Glenn Hoddle starts the match in place of Neil Webb, and Trevor Steven comes in for Chris Waddle, who's a substitute. I have to say that if David Watson had been fit, I think he would have played at centre-back. As it is, he's not, and Bobby Robson perseveres with Tony Adams and Mark Wright. The substitutes include Chris Waddle, Steve McMahon and Mark Haitley. Now, as for the Dutch, they also have made 2 changes. Up the front, they brought in Marco van Basten and left out young John Bosman. But the midfield change is an interesting one in that Erwin Koeman, number 13, the elder brother of Ronald Koeman, has been brought into that department. They've left out a winger, John van Schip, and that may have something to do, knowing the way Rinus Michels thinks, with the fact that Hoddle is playing for England. Anyway, a person perhaps better qualified to discuss that, and indeed the general prospects for today, Jimmy Hill.
Well, the most encouraging feature, I think, for spectators today, whether here or on a television set, is that both teams have got to go out to win. England's changes, I think, are logical and should improve things. Adding 2 passing players, and one who's in something of a class of his own, must improve the quality of the service to the front men, which wasn't good in their previous game, and give the team greater rhythm and cohesion. I'm not too sure, though, about Holland's changes. A little bit of fear in that, I think. It's true that Van Basten up front is a prolific scorer. I think he'll plough a lonely furrow every now and again, joined by Hullet and others. But like England, they've dispensed with 1 winger. They've stiffened their midfield. The rugged Erwin Koeman, no doubt, will be on Hoddle. Yet it's so much will depend on Hullet, as Bobby Charlton said. He's got the capacity to destroy England. But if he doesn't do that, I think England have the all-round ability to come back from the dead and win.
Let's hope that optimism is justified, Jimmy. I don't know how excited or on edge you're feeling at home, but that's the way it is here. It's such a tense position, this, in the group, as Holland, in their orange shirts, get the game started, playing from the right. And Ronald Koeman, the blonde defender, who you'll see come forward a fair bit, finds number 2, Van Tiegelen. Goalkeeper well known to English viewers, Hans van Breukelen, formerly with Nottingham Forest. And here's Hullet. Rijkaard. Vandenberg. Tony Adams trying to get the tackle in. So it's a free kick. Number 20 is Wouters for Holland. Here he is again. Van Basten. Hullet. Arnold Muren. Number 13, Erwin Koeman. Glenn Hoddle for England. Gary Stevens. Brian Robson. Stevens. Beardsley. Free kick. Van Tiegelen on Beardsley. Hoddle. Stevens. Trevor Steven. Hoddle. Steven again. 3 waiting the other way. Still Steven. Back to him from Lineker. Erwin Koeman. Hullet. Good ball out to Vandenberg. 17, Rijkaard. Very talented player. But not then. Stevens. Barnes starting deep again, getting it back from Beardsley, but they'll want to see Barnes attacking further forward today, England. Glenn Hoddle is on the left wing for the moment. Arnold Muren. There's Ronald Koeman with the pass. Mark Wright with the header. Adams. Hoddle. Bullet. Beardsley. Free kick given. Record between the two countries, 4 wins for England, only 1 for the Dutch and 3 draws. But as I say, they were all friendlies. Ronald Koeman forward for Holland. Hoddle. Lineker starts his run now. Player marking him was Rijkaard. No free kick. Van Aale. Muren. Pullit's made a run forward. Van Basten. Pullit. There's Hoddle. Switching play nicely there, Glenn Hoddle to Peter Beardsley. Trevor Steven inside him. Going outside now. Beardsley found him well. Lineker's in the middle waiting. Goal kick.
Well, they're using Erwin Koeman on the left side of midfield, and Arnold Muren's taking a more central role there with Wouters. Otherwise, it's much as we expected. Vandenberg on the right side of midfield. They don't apparently play a sweeper behind.
Here's Wouters. And it seemed to me that Brian Robson was blocked there with a bit of an elbow. Free kick to England. This Italian referee has a very high reputation and also a nice way normally of keeping things in check. He speaks very good English, and so do most of the Dutch players, incidentally. Here's Hoddle. Robson. Barnes. Trying to get Kenny Sansom away on the left. Well, as we've said already, the difficulty for England in recent matches has been scoring goals, only 5 in their last 7 internationals. Bobby Robson hoping that the strikers today, given the opportunities, will put them away. That's Mark Wright. The right back there wearing number 6 is Barry Van Aale of PSV Eindhoven. And here's Rijkaard to Erwin Koeman. Ronald Koeman really delivers those balls well. Pullit challenging Adams. Sansom. Vandenberg. Pullit and Van Basten are waiting in the penalty area. It's gone back to Rijkaard. England are pushing them out now. But Rijkaard comes through, finds Gullit. Trevor Steven. Erwin Koeman. Pullit. Van Basten with Stevens. Free kick. Marco Van Basten from AC Milan was caught offside. Robson. Here's Stevens. Hoddle. Well played. Robson. Lineker's made a darting run through. It came off Koeman. Lineker surely hit the post. Dead unlucky. Ronald Koeman made a disastrous mistake. The blonde defender, it came off his head, he beat his own keeper. And Lineker hit the outside of the post. Chance for England after only 8 minutes.
And what a fine ball it was of Brian Robson's there. Off his left foot, sweetly in Lineker's path, which caused all that trouble.
Van Breukelen was coming off his line so fast. There's Van Basten. And he goes down. Play on. Good decision by the Italian referee. Gary Stevens went for the ball, I would have thought there. As the ball was not long over the head of Mark Wright. Van Basten crept in between them. And Stevens, well, Van Basten made it look dramatic. At worst, it could have been a case of obstruction. A long ball by Gary Stevens. Lineker's off again. Beardsley, Robson's in the penalty area now. Free kick. Koeman was brought down. So, encouragement there for England. Because Koeman panicked. Van Basten moving wide. Bullet is in the penalty area. Van Aale to Wouters. Gary Stevens away. Koeman. Vandenberg. Wouters. Bullet. Hoddle. Play on, good decision, good advantage by the referee. Gary Stevens. Beardsley. And still. Van Aale was the defender. Rijkaard. Free kick to Holland. 10 minutes gone. If you've just this minute come in or turned on late, no score, but Gary Lineker hit the post for England just a couple of minutes ago. Bullet. Rijkaard. Van Aale. Muren. 13, Erwin Koeman. To his brother. Wouters to Muren. Back again, Rijkaard. Hoddle. Lineker. Every England player was back there. Bullet to Muren. Erwin Koeman, he's got a very good left foot. And that's curling a bit. But I rather think Peter Shorten knew exactly what was going on.
It excited the Dutch supporters that more than it excited Peter Shorten. He knew exactly where it was. It was a mishit cross and ended where it should have done. But a good start for England, composed. Bobby Robson looks as if he's got them in the right frame of mind. The moment just Peter Beardsley, not quite as sharp as the others and as positive, but you'd be quite proud of the team if you were the manager on what they've done in this opening 10 or 15 minutes.
Let's hope it continues that way. Tony Adams has got caught a little bit there, but Barnes is there to help him. There was an hour-and-a-half team meeting this morning at the England Hotel, and I suspect quite a few hard words were said as to the size of the task and the attitude required to deal with it. Number 8, Trevor Steven from Everton. To his club colleague, Gary Stevens. Hoddle. Beardsley. Running on to Lineker. "12 minutes gone, no score." This is Koeman. Van Tiegelen. Ryan Robson getting to him, but no question about the foul there. Beardsley was in. It was a poor pass from Wouters, but this is Rijkaard to Gullit. Van Aale. 20 was Wouters. Gullit. Well played. Away by Robson. And now Beardsley. Lineker's off. Marked by Van Tiegelen. Glenn Hoddle's well up on the far side, furthest forward for England at present, as Stevens finds Stephen. Hoddle's waiting, so is Lineker, so is Barnes.
As their manager would have liked, there were 3 England players in the penalty area there ready to finish that off, but not quite enough power finally, and offside brings the game momentarily to a pause.
Beautiful stadium this, the stand on the far side, bedecked underneath with flags. An absolutely glorious day for watching football. Here's Gullit. Finding Rijkaard. Gullit's making a strong run forward now. Away by Gary Stevens, who started very firmly. Beardsley gets a free kick. Seems to me that Glenn Hoddle's got licence to push on and play virtually behind the front 2 attackers for England. He's already made a number of forward runs ahead of them, in fact. Stephen, of course, wide on the right, and Barnes wide on the left. That was Hoddle. Lineker's closing in here. He got the other side of his marker, who was Rijkaard. One good thing about Gary Lineker, he doesn't allow a miss or an unlucky performance even to lower his morale or affect his confidence. He'll still go on looking for chances. And so he should with a record like his. Erwin Koeman for Holland. Ronald Koeman. Over the head of Stevens. This is Gullit. Van Basten's closing into the penalty area now, still Gullit. Well played by the captain, who got that out, and then Trevor Stephen found Hoddle. But he only found Vandenberg. Through ball, Gullit! Chance for Holland. Oh, and Van Basten! Well played by Tony Adams. Met Van Basten as he came in for a wicked low ball played in by Gullit. Stephen. Robson. And now it's Van Basten offside. No danger there.
Tony Adams took quite a lot of criticism in that first game. It's some of it I thought unjustly, but that was splendid defence there. England was in trouble, and he marked very tightly in the middle. Here's the dangerous position, appealing for offside. England in possession again.
This is Robson. Adams. Barnes. Vandenberg. Van Aale. Van Basten's in the centre. Vandenberg. Wouters. Van Basten a good turn. Robson a good challenge. There's no question England properly fired up for this one, as you would expect. But it's the Dutch on the attack. It's Barry Van Aale with the throw. Adams comes to meet Van Basten. Van Aale. And he's forced the first corner after 18 minutes. Now, we've got to watch Hullet here, because in the game that we saw against the Soviet Union, he was flicking a few of these on, and Frank Rijkaard has gone forward as well. Came off Gary Stevens' head. Then Mark Wright. Back in. Oh, and Hullet seemed to be blocked by Adams. Muren. Well, there were appeals for a foul in the box, but Arnold Muren wasn't listening to those. With that lovely left foot, he chipped one back just over the crossbar. Just to confirm, we are in the hands of our German colleagues with the replays today. That was forward by Brian Robson. So now England pushing forward. Tony Adams has gone into the penalty area to lend his height here. Gary Stevens' throw. Robson's also there. Adams fell. Koeman. Glenn Hoddle. Kenny Sansom. Rijkaard. 20 minutes gone here in Dusseldorf in the European Championship. England 0, Holland 0, but quite a lively opening. Here's Van Tichelen for the Dutch. Erwin Koeman. Muren. Mark Wright beating Van Basten. This is Trevor Steven. Lineker. By Stevens. Free kick to Holland. Rijkaard has gone forward into the penalty area to join Hullet and Van Basten. Those are the three danger men here. Erwin Koeman will take it. Good header out and driven back by Wouters, but there was some good defending in there by England, and Wouters' shot easily fielded by Shilton. Here's Robson. Hoddle. Tichelen. And as yet, the nearest we've come to a goal was when Lineker hit the post after 8 minutes. Van Basten to Erwin Koeman. Wouters. Vandenberg. Barnes back to help Sansom. Lineker. Steven. Nice and compact. Gary Stevens. Steven. Hullet. Foul was by Brian Robson. One captain on the other. And halfway through the first half, the Dutch have a free kick, which is taken short and returned to Van Tiegelen, and now Ronald Koeman. Wouters to Rijkaard. Wouters. Going all the way, is he? Van Basten. It's Muren. Good block. Erwin Koeman. Van Basten. Wouters. Well, everything we've seen about the Dutch so far, both in the first match and today, they're never afraid to have a shot at goal from some distance.
Comforting to see that floating in the crowd. Just one thing I've noticed, Erwin Koeman, the number 13, who's playing sort of in the outside left position for the Dutch, is an object lesson really for John Barnes. You've probably noticed him playing actually outside the touchline, but keeping the ball in, making the use of every inch on the width of the pitch. And Barnes comes back, closing off the line there, running in from it as against stretching the defender out. You can see that in the background, out to the touchline. He does close play up instead of offering width to the man passing the ball.
Here's Gary Stevens. There's Barnes. Bobby Robson, who's refused to let the events of the last few days dampen his spirits, at least publicly. I suspect he's had a few private moments when he's felt under a lot of stress, but can't allow the players to see that. Here's Stevens. Glenn Hoddle running on and looking at the linesman for a possible free kick, which he didn't get. This situation is a reminder of Mexico when England lost their first match to Portugal in the World Cup and then recovered against Poland. Ronald Koeman, slightly more decisive with the header this time. Van Tiegelen. Erwin Koeman. Sansom. Barnes. Again, it was a deep starting position, but he's got away from Wouters. Lineker's in the centre, and Barnes takes them all on. Still Barnes forces the corner. That's the best run we've seen from him, perhaps, in this competition so far. Really motored down the line. Now, what can England do from this rehearsed set play? Adams and Wright are in there. Appeals by everybody. It's going to be another corner. Glenn Hoddle is floating these in. Adams and Wright are facing the kicker. And well taken by Van Breukelen. And rolled out to Hullet. But Gary Stevens so quick to close him down. 27 minutes gone in the first half. England 0, Holland 0. In a match that neither country can afford to lose. Beardsley being challenged by Rijkaard. England fans making themselves heard. They'll do well to outshout the Dutch today. It's about 4-1 in Holland's favour. Barnes. Important thing is, from England's angle, they don't allow the Dutch to outnumber them on the field in the key areas. There's Trevor Steven. Lineker waiting in the centre still. Erwin Koeman. Wright getting in ahead of Van Basten, which so far he's done every time. Ronald Koeman. Wright again. Penalised this time. Tegan. Ronald Koeman. Vandenberg. Wouters. Pullet competing here with Wright. No, it's a free kick against the Dutchman. And England have taken it quickly, and they found Glenn Hoddle. Beardsley. Barnes. Hoddle tucking it back into Barnes. It's given away by Robson to Hullet, but Mark Wright again with the interception. And coming forward with some confidence to find Trevor Steven. There's Wright still. Barnes. Stevens. Just coming up to the half-hour mark. England certainly making as valid a contribution so far as Holland in terms of attacking play. And Bobby Robson will, I would imagine, be quite satisfied with the application in that period. They need the break now, though. This is Hoddle. Robson in the penalty area. Barnes. Beardsley. Koeman came to meet him. Goal kick.
A flash of confidence there from Beardsley, which will be useful to see him get going up front. Tried to put it through the player's legs and almost succeeded in catching up with it on the far side. But a satisfactory performance from England. There's very little between the teams, proving that the England team is in the class of the best of the Europeans, but the result will be made on the day by a flash of brilliance from someone.
Van Arle for Holland. Rijkaard. They do just like to push it around among the back four of the Dutch. They don't like to be hurried. This is Van Tiegelen. Erwin Koeman into Hullet. But England had two players in attendance there. Robson. Muren. Vandenberg. Foul. Beardsley protesting, but the free kick's been given. Now, Ronald Koeman does like a shot. This is at, what, 30 yards, I would say. But he's been known to strike them from here and score in league football in Holland. Shilton will be aware of that. Oh, he had to be aware of it and saved it the second time from Van Basten. Rifled in by Ronald Koeman. And Shilton, well, he did awfully well because he seemed to be going to his left and just got his right arm up. So he marks his 100th appearance with what could be a very important save. There was power in that. Lovely striker of the ball, the Dutch number 4, a point that Jimmy Hill was making the other night when they played the Soviets. Here's Lineker for England. England's free kick. Tony Adams is making his way forward. Hoddle to take it. Robson's got his arm up, so has Adams. Robson jumping with Van Breukelen, who will be keen to stand comparison with Peter Shilton today. The Dutch keeper is winning his 37th cap. And he's 31 years old, Shilton 38. "34 minutes gone here in Dusseldorf. England 0, Holland 0. England's best moment when Lineker hit the post. Not their best moment, perhaps, but the nearest they came to a goal. And the Dutch had that shot by Koeman a moment ago. Those have been the most exciting incidents of this first half up to now. Certainly not very much between these teams. Given away by Koeman to Trevor Steven. Lineker's in the centre, Robson's there too. Muren. Number 13, Erwin Koeman's had a very good half. It's Van Basten now for Holland. They got in behind the England defence. Hullit's in the middle. Here comes Hullit. And Kenny Sansom got back to make the challenge. Watch this as Hullit comes in to try and finish it. Sansom got to him and forced him to shoot wide. Good challenge by the England left-back, and a vital one too. They got in, this is twice this has happened, England have got in trouble on their right flank, but the cover was on. And Hullit put it wide. I think the gap was there because Gary Stevens had still got to get back from an England attacking position. Here's Barnes. Beardsley. Barnes again. Hoddle. John Barnes is the player down. Jimmy Hill.
Well, at the moment, it is Trevor Steven who's made the biggest impression of the two new players. He's added a lot of fluency, as I thought might happen to this right flank, and apart from that nasty moment there where his teammate Gary Stevens got stuck up, they've been quite a threat on this right-hand side and got a fair number of crosses in. Strangely, skipper Brian Robson has not had the best of games. He's been in superb form, but he's not going to be put off by a few bad passes in the early stage of the game. He'll come back, I'm sure about that. Gary Lineker going through a quiet period. John Barnes looking as if he might splutter into life, which would make an enormous difference to England's prospects. But the Dutch, deadly dangerous if you leave them a little bit of space to play in.
So this huge army of Dutch supporters, backed out of your picture, they're taking part in the Mexican wave round the stadium at the moment. Hoddle with the kick. There's Barnes. Oh, they failed to clear that. This is Trevor Steven. And Ruud Gullit is back in defence there to hook the ball clear, as far as Tony Adams anyway. Forward by Hoddle. Free kick. Van Tiegelen penalised for the foul on Lineker. Now, we have a couple of specialists here. Well, more than a couple, actually. The players round the ball are Barnes and Hoddle, Brian Robson. But I would imagine it'll be Hoddle or Barnes who attempt something. It's the perfect position, perhaps, for the curler. And it's Hoddle. Oh, it's at the post. So unlucky. And it was a scorcher from Glenn Hoddle. He drove that and curled it. Van Breukelen was completely beaten, and England have now hit the post twice. Barnes. Sansom. Hoddle. Right. Tony Adams has stayed forward. Van Tiegelen. Adams is still in the centre-forward position. This is Stevens, this is Lineker. Well, what a let-off for Holland. Van Breukelen will be enormously relieved. He was full stretch, but still couldn't get anywhere near it. Van Aale. And Baston putting himself about. Free kick given. Well, that was straight out of the Glenn Hoddle repertoire, that free kick. What a shame for England it didn't go in. 5 minutes to half-time, no score, but England twice denied by that same post. Here's Stevens. And Beardsley.
Bobby Robson there must be wondering when his luck is going to turn, because it's certainly not been in now for, what, 90 plus 40 minutes of football. The ball won't go in the opponent's net, whatever the quality of the strike, it seems.
England supporters showing that they've appreciated the way the team has played in this first half. It's also been a splendidly conducted game on the part of the players and the referee. Not a bad tackle worthy of mention. And there's a lot at stake, remember, here. Survival in this championship. Here's Wouters. This is Rijkaard. Was Hoddle, and Koeman cut it out. It's aimed at Lineker. And that was Barnes in defence. Any latecomers? I know there are some people that might be tuning in as they come home from work. Situation here is that the score is 0-0, but England have twice hit the post. Lineker very early in the game, following a mistake in the Dutch defence, and then Glenn Hoddle from that blistering free kick. As against that, Shilton's had one swerving effort to save from Koeman, and the England defence has twice covered dangerous crosses from the Dutch left flank. That's the way of it as Lineker turns. Hoddle. Here's Stevens. Now Robson. Tony Adams coming forward. Barnes. Beardsley playing deep now. Coming back to him from Ronald Koeman. This is Wright. Beardsley again. Oh, he's put... Wright did well there. A bit short that from Beardsley. Koeman. Wouters. 2.5 minutes left in the first half. England 0, Holland 0. Rijkaard. Stephen was in well, but this is Erwin Koeman. Arnold Muren finding it pretty hard to get into the game at this stage. Gary Stevens. Gullit again against Stevens, and he's beaten him. Van Basten in the middle, arriving now. That's Van Basten. It's Van Basten. It's a goal for Holland. Marco van Basten. 2 minutes before half-time. And the Dutch delighted. And Gullit did the damage on the left-hand side and whipped the ball in. Now then, Van Basten turning his man, and as the challenge came in, the ball shot past Shilton. Tony Adams, I think, was the first defender who Van Basten turned, and as Gary Stevens went to meet him, Van Basten just got his foot to it first to put Holland ahead. And the stadium is a whole mass of orange flags and favours. And what a psychological blow just before half-time. After England had twice hit the post, but I do have to say it was the third time that Holland had exposed the right flank of Bobby Robson's defence. They got away down this wing a couple of times before. The cross had been cleared then, but on the third occasion, Van Basten had the presence and the poise to hold things up, beat his man, and just jabbed the ball in. Robson for England. Hoddle. Stevens. Sansom. Robson's in the penalty area, so is Lineker. Trevor Steven coming in now, and Erwin Koeman happy to put it behind. Could England snatch it back before the whistle? Adams goes forward, so does Wright. And Van Breukelen took it as Robson came in. Confidence spreading through the Dutch ranks. Vandenberg. And Frank Rijkaard's made a run from the back out to the right wing. And Van Basten's through again. And he's round Shilton, and Gary Stevens off the line. Van Basten going through a devastating spell. Shilton came, Van Basten leapt over him, and Stevens covered. Corner to Holland. Right away from Rijkaard. It's half-time. Well, 1-0 to the Dutch. But it could have been worse with that clearance off the line in the last seconds. Jimmy Hill.
Well, for 2 years now, we've been worrying about the vulnerability of the central defence to attackers with pace and nimble turning power. And just in that last 3 minutes before half-time, that problem came home to roost in a devastating way. A quick turn against the defender there, and Van Basten had made the space for the goal, and then with a short space afterwards, he'd raced through the whole defence, and only Gary Stevens got it off the line. So a warning to England, the game not out of control, but weaknesses which have been known for some time have emerged at just the wrong moment.
So at half-time here in the Rheinstadion in Dusseldorf, it's the Dutch who are making the noise with the score in this Group 2 match, which the losers mean will go out. The score, Holland 1, England 0.
Well, we're up against it, gentlemen, aren't we? And an awful time to concede the goal. All in all, the England performance, though, up till that point, looked pretty useful, Terry.
I thought, in actual fact, it was very even, and then with about 15, 20 minutes to half-time, I thought we got all of it. And then, if anything, that bred overconfidence. We was getting back people forward and left spaces to be counter-attacked into. Like we said before, I think that we must defend well, because we will get the chances to win the game, and we have had them. You know, I think Lineker's, we can't say anything, but it was a bad miss. With Hoddle, it was an excellent strike, and he's unlucky that we're not one up, and inside 2 minutes we're one down.
Well, the woodwork, as you say, is having a blinder, really, but you would consider this a bad miss by Lineker right at the start?
Yes, it's not a good angle, but he goes in. It's a lovely ball from Robson, and there's a mess up, really. The first and only one. He's coming out too quick, the goalkeeper, and can't adjust his position. Well, that's a bad angle. He's close, and really he'll be disappointed that he hasn't scored there.
Seems to be almost his destiny, Bob, this competition.
Yes, it's just a little bit of... He's so concerned with scoring a goal that when he gets a chance, he wants to make absolutely sure, and by doing that, that little extra time is what's actually making him miss. If he was completely confident and everything was going great, he would pop them in without any trouble. It's just that little lack of confidence. He needs one goal. But I was really disappointed at the goal that was given away right at the death. I mean, you've got to imagine that the lads were playing really quite well, and like Terry says, for about 10 or 15 minutes, everybody was bubbling. They were giving bad balls away, and suddenly it looked okay. And then that little bit of confidence, like you said, and we lose possession. And to go in and have to sit down now for 10 or 15 minutes, when you thought you've done well, and you've got a hill to climb now, a big hill to climb, it's psychologically a bad blow. But there's no question that they've got to go out now for 45 minutes and give everything that they've got. That's the only thing that's left to them. It's the end of their season otherwise. So,
well, people are coming in all the time at home, so let's just go through one or two of the other incidents that happened in that half. Hoddle, for you, I know you were saying during that first half's been playing pretty well. They've got an incident here, though, I think, where he lost the ball, if my memory serves me right, and the Dutch were able to mount an attack here.
That's right. I couldn't even actually see what he was looking for there. And this is again down this left side where the goal eventually come. We'd been warned once or twice, I think, through there, and the ball was played in, and Adams done extremely well to stop it, as did Sansom shortly afterwards in exactly the same position, where eventually the goal came from.
Well, of course, the goal was set up by Gullit, which we'll look at again shortly. In a moment. But I mean, all in all, what about his performance in this half? Gullit, I mean, he hasn't been that dangerous, but then he suddenly gets involved in the goal.
He's one of those players that is top class. I mean, the ball that he knocked in for the goal was top class, and the finish was top. You know he can do that, even if he's not doing it for a large amount of the time. You can't ever stop concentrating on with someone like him. This is the difference. Van Basten's come back in at the side, and he looks very sharp, you know, towards the end, whereas perhaps Beardsley, I'm afraid, looks very tired. I mean, he's a super player for England and for us, but recently he looks tired, and today he looks tired, and that's where Lineker needs a little bit of help to cash in on the spaces, and there are spaces at the back that we could get into.
I think really Jimmy... Sorry, Bob.
It's really very hot. I mean, you can tell just by looking, and you can tell the way that sometimes they're labouring. They need that little bit of extra time to actually make a pass. And it's sometimes like when they're hurrying, where like Glenn Huddle gave that ball away. It's really physically tiring, and he's not the biggest lad that you've ever seen, Peter Beardsley, and he looks to be labouring. He looks really overtrained. I mean, I would never accuse him of not trying, because that's not the way that he is.
No.
Of course not. Would you pull him off at half-time, though, because of that, do you think? And perhaps
I wouldn't pull him off at half-time. Maybe a little later, if things don't go particularly worse.
Okay.
And his game relies on a physical capacity.
Yeah, let's just look at one or two of the other incidents again for people coming in, might not have seen it. I think Jimmy was saying that they'll shoot from anywhere. Well, look at this free kick from Koeman.
It appears to go to the left, but Chilton goes across with it and then realises it's coming back, and at the last minute he keeps his eye on it right into his hand, and he does well there. There's a lot of power in that.
Yeah. Actually, that would suggest that they should have had another man in the lineup there, because Peter Shilton was guarding the right-hand side of the goals, and it actually went straight through to the centre. I would think that's too much of a patch for him to cover, which would suggest maybe that they were a man short in the lineup.
Well, the Hoddle free kick, if anything, was better than that one, wasn't it?
Well, we are seeing top-class people, and you have got to be... I mean, they've got 6 in the wall there. Van Breukelen really is in quite a good position. He still has a lot of problem to get across to cover that, because it looks like it's going outside and coming back in with a lot of pace again, and he can't reach it. So the goalkeepers have really got to be at their best, because these people that are taking free kicks up to 25 yards are very dangerous.
Well, he's a very fair keeper, isn't he? And he almost got to it, but it was a wonderful free kick, and it's wretched luck. I mean, there's nothing else to say about it than that, is there?
When things go wrong for you, I mean, sometimes...
they go wrong, because then they go down the other end of the score.
Sometimes, when things go right for you, that could have hit the post, come and hit the goalkeeper on the head and gone into the back of the net. You've seen that happen lots of times, but it's just... The luck's just not with us at the moment. We've got to make our own,
Yeah.
But the break yesterday, we saw the German game, the goalkeeper blocks it, does ever so well, and it then falls to their men, doesn't it? He knocks it in the net.
Yeah.
Whereas it seems to be, it's not breaking for us at the moment, but as you say, we've got to make it happen.
Yeah. Good goal, though, wasn't it?
Oh, it was top class.
Super goal.
I mean,
Super goal. You can't.
Again, we've bombed forward down this side, and it's gone back to the left side of the field. And our man Gullit is on his way and just toes it forward, strength and pace.
Yep.
And then we're stretched again. We're stretched. In actual fact, he gets around the box, and the defenders look as if they're in good positions. Stevens allows Wright to come first, covers him on the inside. He plays it between the two of them through the eye of a needle.
That's
checks one way
ball,
and comes inside, and before the tackle can be made, net over.
Well, Adams was the defender, and Stevens came in. I'm not so sure he didn't get a part of his foot to it as well, unfortunately for him.
Yeah.
That particular skill there that Van Basten did to actually find the turn to find the space was actually, we call it Johan Cruyff, because he first did that in 1974 against Brazil. No one ever seen it before. And so, good grief, look at that, you've never seen anything like it, because it was so unique, and now everybody does it. And well, a great example of how it can work there.
Yeah, the curtain definitely, the whole thing would have been definitely up, wouldn't it, if Van Basten had got the second chance.
Well, I was just thinking, although that was a terrible psychological blow to lose a goal before half-time, the one thing they can get out of it is it could have been two. Yeah. We're still in the game.
Yeah.
Look at this.
It's a great run, a great pass, and he skins Shilton, and there's no doubt it would have gone in, but we cover well, that's right.
Stevens did well.
A lot of forwards in that situation would have dived over the goalkeeper and tried to get a penalty.
Yeah.
But his confidence is up, he's just scored a goal, he wants to get another. Nearly did.
Can we do it?
We can do it.
We can do it.
Okay. We've done harder things before.
Given me the usual statistics, thanks Albert. England 5 goal attempts, 1 save, 2 hit the post, 1 block, 1 off target. Holland 9 goal attempts. The goal, of course, 2 save, 3 block, 3 off target. Corners 2-2, fouls 7-7. 1-0 to Holland at half-time.
Yes.
Right, we'll be back with the second half live, of course, in a moment or two. But let's have a little reaction to that wretched crowd trouble that was happening in Dusseldorf last night. You can't fail to have noticed it in your papers and everywhere else, of course. Colin Moynihan, the Minister for Sport, is there at the match today, and we've been getting his reaction to the situation.
I think we're both angry and ashamed about the incidents that have taken place this week. For that reason, the Prime Minister has requested a full report from me, which I've nearly completed. Obviously, I wanted to come over today and assess downtown this evening, what measures were being taken to deter the hooligan element, and possibly what more can be done, both in the domestic and the international scene.
What about any suggestions that there may have been that the English team should be withdrawn from the competition? That surely can't be serious.
Well, one of the views that is quite seriously held back in the UK is that whilst we recognise there are some 8,000 fans over here and a hardcore of criminals, and that if the English team are withdrawn, then that's not going to affect the fact that we've got the hard-nosed criminals and the fans over here. There is nevertheless a feeling that the incidents that we've seen are serious and major cancer associated with English football, and something which the English team may not wish to be associated with whatsoever. And the way that they could demonstrate that strongly is to withdraw. Now, that's not a matter for government, that is a matter for the FA, and Bert Milichip has made it clear that that is a consideration that he'll have in mind during these championships, and I will be meeting with him straight after the game.
What is Mrs. Thatcher's personal feeling? You've spoken to her.
I'm meeting her tomorrow, and so I'll be able to tell you that straight after the meeting that we'll have tomorrow. There's no doubt from what she said in the House of Commons yesterday, which I was present, that she is very angry indeed about the incidents that have gone on. She's rightly ashamed that an English hooligan element can not only give the country such an appalling international reputation, but it is doing so much damage to this competition and causing havoc and mayhem in not just 1 or 2 incidents, but a whole rash of incidents over the past 4 days.
While obviously you cannot sort of ignore that, there are Dutch fans here who've been causing trouble. Apparently the German fans are involved. We mustn't get it out of perspective and make it totally a British disease.
And I'm surprised you said British then, but as far as some people are concerned, they think it is just an English disease. It is not. It is a major international problem. And if you look at the problems that have occurred in some other countries in Europe, not least in Holland and Italy this season, they're very serious indeed, and in many ways just as serious. But that is no excuse whatsoever for the fact that the overwhelming majority of people who have been arrested and indeed charged since the beginning of these championships have indeed been English.
But if we pull out or stop going to tournaments, surely we're surrendering to the minority element who are causing trouble?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the package of measures we've got to look at are what can we do inside the ground to deter the hooligans, and what can we do in the separate area, which is a law and order issue about hooligans actually who might be totally unconnected with football outside, and how can we make sure that we have tough sentencing, that we make it quite clear that measures taken by the police will deter hooligans. At the moment, it's even got to the point with some of them, when they pride themselves that if they are taken in for 8 hours or overnight to cool off, they almost come out with additional pride as a hooligan, that they just have one more, as it were, night in jail, which hardens their reputation as a criminal. Now, that is totally and utterly unacceptable. And what we've got to do through international cooperation, because as you rightly point out, this is not just a problem we face in England, but it is very seriously associated with the English hooligan element. We must make sure that we do take a very tough and determined line. And that, of course, is an area which the Home Office are closely looking at and which they will be bringing forward in the meeting tomorrow when the Prime Minister sits down with both Douglas Head and myself.
Well, plenty of reaction, Bob, but not many solutions yet to this problem.
No. They keep saying, you know, that the problem is there, but I think that the government have to actually take the bull by the horns and say, this is what we're going to do. And if he's going to speak, if the Minister is going to speak with Mrs. Thatcher tomorrow, I hope that they come out with some really good recommendations and not throw the ball back into football's court, but appreciate that they have criminals. He actually mentioned they are criminals. They are not football people. And football people, much more dedicated to the game than myself, you know, would like to see our game protected by and those people not being able to come to football matches. But football gets blamed for it time after time. And instead of all the bad things that happens in football, we should think of all the good things that football has brought and the good people that work in the game that want a little help from the government. I hope that when they do speak tomorrow, that they come up with some really good and sensible solutions.
We're looking for good things now from the second half, Bobby. Thank you very much. Jimmy Hill and John Motson. England can do it, as you say, Bob.
Thanks, Des. Just a point there about the England central defence, Jimmy. I think it might be fair to say that Tony Adams, because of the European ban, hasn't had the experience he would have had against this type of opposition.
Well, in the Arsenal side, there's no doubt that he would have had the opportunity, had we been allowed to play in Europe, to come up against that type of nimble, speedy, turning defender that exists probably more on the continent than the kind of striker that he comes up against in the English league. And that's being denied that young player and all the young players coming on because of something which is not their fault and not within their power to stop. What is such a pity, I was just thinking the players in this competition out here have behaved very well. It's been a very sporting competition. There's been very little violence. It's been splendid in that way. And it's no fault of theirs that the stories we're reading are not about good things happening on the field, but appalling things happening off it.
So, on the field now, England have 45 minutes in which to resurrect their European Championship hopes. Bear in mind that the team that loses this match is automatically out of the competition because they would have lost 2 games and wouldn't be able to put the damage right in their third. And England find themselves a goal behind, and it's Mark Wright coming forward. Trevor Stephen. Gary Stevens up against Rijkaard. Beardsley moving to help him, taking on Koeman. Stevens couldn't gather it. Erwin Koeman to Hullet. Well, we wondered the effect Hullet might have on the match. He certainly made the goal and has made inroads on that left-hand side for Holland on more than one occasion. Adams is forward here for England. Here's Wright. Still Wright. That's his cross. Adams is underneath it, heading it back in and out by Van Tiegelen. And suddenly the Dutch have a break on with Gerald Vandenberg. Van Basten's in the middle. Hullet's making a striding run as well across left to right. Still Vandenberg. And he's found Van Aale. Well, England there was stretched. simply because so many of their players had been involved in the attack at the other end. And finally, a corner. Mark Wright had an awful lot to do to get back there, but he made it. Rijkaard and Bosman facing the kicker. That was headed on by Van Basten. Wouters. Van Aale. Here's Arnold Muren. Vandenberg. Again, a good interception by Wright. He's had some good moments. Just a reminder on the England subs with Bobby Robson on the bench. He's got Chris Waddle and Mark Haitley and Steve McMahon, who he could bring into play. And the Dutch have John Bosman, of course, who was left out today. In fact, the replacement of Van Basten for him appears at the moment to have been a good move on the part of Rinus Michels. Gary Stevens. Stevens. Well played. 3 in the middle. Rijkaard took it away from Barnes. Corner to England. Wright and Adams on their way forward. Brian Robson will come in from a deeper position. Played short to Beardsley. Hoddle's cross. Oh, and Van Breukelen missed it. And it's just gone wide. Mark Wright was the player who almost got in there. Just dropped the wrong side of the post after Van Breukelen got lost in the crowd. 4 minutes gone in the second half. Holland 1, England 0. Free kick to the Dutch. Koeman. Muren. Gary Stevens with Ruud Gullit. Van Basten, it went over Wright's head there, he misjudged it. This is Stevens. To Robson, now Hoddle. As well played. Beardsley. England knitting together certainly better today than they did against the Republic of Ireland. This is Barnes, but it needs some inspiration from him. Robson. Beardsley. This is Hoddle. Wright. And Mark Wright again. It was a good one too, but it wasn't so good the second pass. Here's Rijkaard, and Mark Wright, in making these forward sallies, will have to again make a lot of ground to get back. Barnes for England. Free kick. Smile on the face of Van Aale, but he's been penalised.
My point there again, John, the position that Barnes picked up that ball, you can see roughly where he is now, and there's a good 20-25 yards of space outside here which was unused as England made that attack.
Wright and Adams are poised to come in from the far side for this free kick, and Hoddle plays it to Beardsley. Half blocked. Everybody compressed into the Dutch half here, and they're trying to play an offside Holland. Glenn Hoddle actually managed to... The Dutch are moaning at the linesman. They're saying he must have been offside, Beardsley. The linesman kept his flag down. Not that the pass was actually going to find an England player, but Rijkaard is arguing with the referee, who is lecturing him for dissent. And the referee applauds his linesman and says, you were perfectly within your rights. One of those offsides that maybe the referee was best placed to give and not the linesman. Anyway, they got the free kick in the end. Seven minutes gone in the second half here in Dusseldorf, and Bobby Robson's team still a goal behind. Scored barely 2 minutes before half-time. This is right. Adams. Barnes. Well, he lost that in the left half position. Van Basten to Vandenberg. Now there's danger. This is Van Aale. Oh. England really giving the ball away there, Jimmy.
Well, he was in that same position, not talking about playing wingers. He's not playing wide at all, and he had his back to the play and got into a complete muddle. Feel sorry for John Barnes. He's had a wonderful season, but I don't think he's much help to England at the moment.
Seems to be a suggestion that the Liverpool players may have peaked so high and so early that they're now experiencing some reaction or tiredness. Certainly, here's Beardsley. I said about him at half-time. Robson. Oh, he's got it back. It's Brian Robson. A great chance for England. He scored. The captain's done it. England are level. And Brian Robson shows the way. Beardsley played the first ball in. Robson played a 1-2. It was pushed back to him by Lineker. He carried on, and Van Breukelen, well, it's a great finish actually. He dived forward to make sure it went in. Brian Robson's 22nd goal for England, and has he scored a more vital one, I wonder? Van Breukelen just came out and he managed to jab it past him and over him. 9 minutes gone in the second half, and England are level. Koeman for Holland. Bullet. Robson's name announced over the booming loudspeaker system in the Rheinstadion and greeted with great delight by the England contingent. Captain courageous, finding himself in one of those forward positions, breaking from midfield and playing a good 1-2 with Gary Lineker. Gary Lineker in the role of provider there rather than scorer, and it makes a nice change for someone other than him to be applying the finishing touch. There is Lineker though, and England's tails are up now. This is Sansom. Back by Wouters. Van Tiegelen. But bear in mind that although a draw would technically keep both sides in the competition, it's a win that they're really looking for here, so England will press on and try and build on that improvement. Here's Huddle. Wright coming forward yet again. He's done so effectively at times. Lineker, right again. Lineker! And the Dutch defending desperately on the edge of their area. That was Van Tiegelen. Huddle. Offside Barnes. Play on, says the referee. Oh, he tried to play an advantage, but the free kick was taken anyway by Muren. It's Barnes who was caught. This is Hullet, and he's giving the ball away now. The Dutch are rattled. Hoddle, Barnes, Beardsley, who started that move that led to the goal. It's a free kick to England. Mark Wright will require some attention, which gives me a chance to bring in Jimmy Hill again.
Well, you said the Dutch were rattled, and they really have been in that last 5 minutes of play. All the confidence has come seeping back into the England players and appeared to be disappearing from the Dutch. They thought they had the game sewn up. Not only they scored a goal, but they were creating other chances and looking dangerous. They'd found a way through, but it's a different game now.
And Mark Wright will not be fit enough for the moment to go up for the free kick, so Tony Adams is there. Brian Robson also waiting to come in. Played forward by Hoddle for Sansom and Vandenberg and Sansom, and a free kick's been given. We were expecting to see Ronald Koeman coming out from the back with the ball, but I think we've seen more of Mark Wright doing it.
Yes, he's never lacked confidence, Mark Wright, to play when he's had the ball at his feet. The substance is there for a first-class international career, but he just has to stop the kind of rush of blood to the head that lost us the goal in the first game against Ireland.
13 minutes gone in the second half in Dusseldorf. England 1, Holland 1. Brian Robson having put England back into the game with the equaliser. And those people who think that Brian Robson should actually be playing in the back four might reflect on the fact that from midfield he can get into scoring positions like he did just then, which is presumably what Bobby Robson keeps him there. Now Muren, I wonder if he'll last the 90 minutes, Arnold Muren. They've in the past sometimes substituted him. He's 37 now. Here's Hoddle for England. And play on, says the linesman. Beardsley. Hooked across, and Van Breukelen coming a long way for that. Adams forward for the throw. Sansom takes it. There's Adams. Stephen. Robson's in the thick of it again. And finally a free kick to Holland. Referee having a word again about dissent, this time with the England captain. Quarter of an hour gone in the second half. One each. Vandenberg for Holland. Pullet again, nursing that left wing position. Did that nicely. Vandenberg's in there. It just glanced off Kenny Sansom's head, and Barnes couldn't save it. Van Arle to take the throw. Van Basten's in there. Overhead kick from Hoddle, headed back by Ronald Koeman, and then Beardsley. Van Tiegelen. And the Dutch are going to make the first substitution of the match, and it shows how badly they want to win it, because it's a striker who's coming on. Wim Kieft, number 14. A goal scorer of some considerable pedigree, has replaced Gerald Vandenberg. Kieft, a former winner of the Golden Boot, and indeed he scored 28 league goals in 32 games for PSV Eindhoven this last season. And he's gone into a forward position to link up with Van Basten. So whether Hullet will drop a bit deeper, we shall see. Here's Ronald Koeman. Muren. Rijkaard. So Vandenberg has been replaced, as he was in the opening match against the Soviets. Well played, Kenny Sansom. Barnes, Beardsley. Long ball by Ronald Koeman. Wright and Adams with the straightforward two strikers, two tall men to contend with now, and Hullet just floating in behind them. This is Lineker. Just over 17 minutes gone in the second half. And the Rheinstadion seeing a very good match, but one of considerable significance, which could still so easily go either way. Hoddle to Beardsley. Couldn't get past Rijkaard. Now he's chasing him. And he's beaten him. Well played, Beardsley. He'll get the free kick. Short's being held there, really. This is Sansom. Tony Adams has made a run up from the back here. Can Hoddle find him? Well, he's found Barnes. Hoddle. Kenny Sansom's coming in offside. Offside, and it wouldn't have mattered. Jimmy Hill shouting beside me. Lineker hit the bar, but actually, Jimmy, it was offside against Kenny Sansom.
Yes, it was. And what was said about Peter Beardsley not giving up, however he felt, was shown there. That tackle back on Rijkaard, and then the challenge after that. He's giving everything he's got. Be fascinating to see what's done about the substitutions, because one or two players might not last. It's a hot afternoon, humidity 72 here, so exhaustion's going to play some part in the final battle.
Here's Rijkaard for the Dutch. Koeman. Number 20, Wouters. Kieft is searching for a position on the edge of the England penalty area. Hullet's gone to join him there. And that ball from one Koeman to the other. This is Irwin. Came off Tony Adams. It's a corner to Holland. The cross was actually too long for the Dutch players, but Adams put it behind. Well, there's one way of following your team. Rijkaard and Kieft have come to the near post for the kick from Erwin Koeman. On by Rijkaard. Hullet over the top.
Some athlete, Rudy Hullet. You see the elevation he gets here. Shilton not in position. He gets up above everybody and just can't quite squeeze it under the crossbar. I'm rather hoping that, as against the Russians, he might fade a bit in this second half, but it hasn't happened yet.
20 minutes gone, in fact, in the second half here in Dusseldorf. One goal each for any latecomers. Van Basten for Holland after 44 minutes. Brian Robson for England after 54. And there goes Lineker. England are warming up Haitley and McMahon at the moment. Here's Koeman for Holland. Van Basten. Oh, and Van Aale. No, offside. Offside. Van Aale in the centre of the pitch and Kieft on our side. It could have been either one of them, actually. I think it was, well, yes, Van Aale in the middle. Forward by Sansom to Beardsley. Barnes. What a good contest this is. England, if anything, having the better of the second half. Trevor Stephen. Lineker. Brian Robson was in the thick of it again there in the penalty area. Our furthest player forward. He's still there. Lineker. Goal kick. I said that McMahon and Haitley were warming up. In fairness, so too are Waddle and Anderson. Bobby Robson's got all his subs taking some exercise on the running track.
Haitley might prove quite a threat, because the Dutch defence and the goalkeeper have been in a little bit of disarray at times, but it looks as if it's Waddle has got his jacket off, John.
Yes, Bobby Robson, out of your picture, has just gone to talk to Chris Waddle, who's taken off his tracksuit top and is definitely coming on. Can't emphasise enough the way the group is poised, that a draw, although it would keep their hopes alive, isn't really enough from this match. Both teams have to go for the win. It's going to make for a very exciting last 25 minutes or so. Arnold Muren to Ruud Gullit. Wouters is well forward in the centre. This is Van Aerle. Went behind Gullit. Koeman, Muren, Koeman, and again Van Basten coming short. Good tackle by Adams. Van Tiegelen. Koeman. Now Van Basten, there was space there to line up the shot, and Peter Shilton had to turn it round. They didn't close Van Basten down too well there. Now the substitution, it's going to be Trevor Steven to come off and Chris Waddle to go on. Steven, who took Waddle's place in the team today, now gives way to him. Corner to Holland. No, I think it's going to be retaken. I don't think the referee was ready because Chris Waddle hadn't quite got himself onto the pitch. Rijkaard and Kieft are the players in the near post area. Foul. Well, Jimmy, what do you make of the substitution with 20 minutes to go?
It looked to me as if when Trevor Steven came off, he was limping slightly. I would think that's because of injury. I wouldn't have taken him off, and I don't think Bobby Robson would otherwise, because he's had a splendid game. But Mark Hateley, who is the one who I think might be the greater threat to the Dutch later in the game, is still continuing to warm up on the track. But it's going to be a fascinating last period of the game.
Hoddle forward, Robson on the chase. Managed to hook it up, but not where he wanted it to go. He would have preferred to have found Lineker. Hateley is indeed still doing the stretches and looks as though he will be playing a part. This is Gullit to Muren. Now Rijkaard for Holland. Van Basten. Good technique. Oh, Gullit! Side netting. They were so quick to create the opening. The England defenders were thrown. Van Basten, Gullit so sharp. Peter Shilton standing up and then into the side netting. Well, you couldn't say that Gullit has dominated the match, but he's certainly had moments when he's made England look very uncomfortable. Floating in and out of the action, but when he's in it, thoroughly dangerous. Plays in bursts, really. Erwin Koeman. 19 minutes to go. England 1, Holland 1. Van Tiegelen. Muren. I think Holland are going to get a free kick there.
Ruud Gullit is also so determined to get into the later stages of this competition, because he knows you can't prove yourself the best player in Europe unless you get into the final stages of a major competition. And so he's fighting for his sort of professional life.
Well, he's in there now with Van Basten and Kieft. It's played for Van Basten. In low, and Gullit again, and Kieft is there. And Hullit's there, and Kieft again. Back came Beardsley. Wouters with the miss-hit shot. Hullit. Oh, Van Basten! 2-1 Holland! Marco Van Basten scores his second. England are behind for the second time. The Dutch supporters thrilled again. Now let's see, as the ball comes in, there's Hullit. Play to the left, Van Basten with the left foot shot and drilled into the corner. Again, accurate finishing. England didn't get the ball away. It span off Adams, I think, for a moment there. They were appealing for offside on the left. I don't think he was, in all honesty. And Holland lead 2-1 with 17 minutes to go. And England make the second substitution. Peter Beardsley is off and Mark Hateley is on.
And that was a flash that shows the difference between an outstanding international and a brilliant one. They combined beautifully, and it was a devastating finish.
Well, can England come back for a second time? Here's Hoddle. Lineker. Hateley. Hateley wearing number 18. Kieft. And again, Hateley. It'll probably run out. And once again, Hullit involved in the goal, as he had been in the first one. The combination between Hullit and Van Basten has proved lethal, really, Jimmy.
Yes, it has. And when we were watching the Soviet Union play against Holland, I felt they were the best two teams alongside with Italy that I'd seen in the competition. And the Dutch are proving that today. They have special players who've done extraordinary things to turn the game, which was the way in which we felt it might go. But it's not over yet. England are there with a couple of fresh players and still the hope.
Yes, in all the excitement, a reminder that Waddle and Hateley are now on for England. Here's Van Aale for the Dutch. Van Basten, what a masterstroke Rinus Michels seems to have pulled in bringing Van Basten back. This is Kieft. Now the Dutch will concentrate on possession, I would think. Arnold Muren. Low into Hullit. Turning Waddle. Hullit's cross, away by Sanson. There's Koeman up there. And Van Aale. Corner. Well, this is a prolific spell by Holland. Rijkaard is forward again. Erwin Koeman to take the corner. Kieft. Oh, Van Basten! Well, it's a hat-trick. And the Dutch have surely cracked it now. The third goal from the corner kick. The near post corner flicked on by Kieft, and Van Basten finished it at the far post. Again, absolutely deadly close to goal. This 23-year-old from AC Milan, who spent 6 months of the season with injury. At one point he wasn't even going to come to the championships. Didn't get in the team at the start. Brought back by Rinus Michels today, and he scored 3 goals. Barnes looking for Hateley at the other end. 14 minutes to go. Holland 3, England 1. It was 2 goals in 4 minutes there. This is Wouters. Ronald Koeman. Van Aale. Stadium throbbing with noise from the Dutch supporters. Their team have taken over the match now for sure. Free kick to Holland. Gullit makes the run across. And it rather looks, I'm afraid, as though England may be going out of the European Championships. 13 minutes to go, 2 goals to make up. It's a tall order with Holland playing like this. Well, from Linus Meekel's point of view, that was a devastating 5 minutes, Jimmy.
Yes, it was, and you can hear the joy resounding around this stadium of the Dutch supporters, because they have an elegant team. They play football, play it sportingly, and they have flashes of brilliance, which we haven't quite got the defence, or England hasn't quite got the defence to contain.
Putting one across his old manager maybe here. Rijkaard. Well, there'll be some sad English supporters, not just here, but at home, of course, because it looked at 1-1 as though we were in with a chance here. And the Dutch have moved up a gear. Koeman, Muren. This reminds me of the noise in the German stadiums in 1974 when Cruyff and company were going great guns in the World Cup. This is a very different Dutch team, perhaps not as good or as mature, but certainly very promising and very intelligent. Van Basten again. Nobody to his left. Samson for England. Van Basten's name booming out from the Dutch supporters, 40,000 of them in the Rijnstadion. This is a memorable personal performance as the Dutch warm up Severine, one of their other substitutes. Brian Robson. Hoddle. Samson. Hateley waiting on the far side. Hoddle again, but Van Aale closing the gap there. Adams tackle, Barnes. Waddle. Hateley pulling away. Rijkaard in front of him. Gullit back to challenge Gary Stevens. Well, he's conducting things now, is Ruud Gullit. Right. Adams. Samson. Here's Barnes.
Well, there's been and will be a lot of criticism of Bobby Robson. I don't think those of us who work with television are as extreme in our remarks as some that we read in newspapers. But on the other hand, John Barnes playing throughout this match and the last match, where without any doubt being out of form, is really an extraordinary decision. I just can't see that in any way. He's out of touch. And it really would be kinder to have brought him off and not subjected him to the doubt that enters into his mind almost every time a ball's given to him.
looks as though England's dreams are dying now. There's only 8 minutes to go. Sanson. Cahill. Barnes. Cahill again. And Barnes again. Corner to England. Well, let's hope for some dramatic change of events here. Adams and Wright are both in the penalty area. Here's Adams. Well, that might have fallen better. Gary Stevens through the crowd, away by Muren, I think. All the Dutch were back anyway. Here's Van Basten again. He's got the other side of Hoddle. Taking on Wright and still getting a shot in. He can do nothing wrong at the moment. Here's Barnes. Hoddle. Barnes again. Wright's cross. Sanson. Well, Marco van Basten turned this match in the second half with 5 minutes of finishing power that the England defenders will never forget. It was so precariously balanced at 1-1. And then suddenly he struck twice to add to the one he got before. Hoddle with the free kick. Mark Wright. Adams. Here's Lineker. Sanson. Here's Koeman. Across to Hullet. Van Basten's in the middle again. And Holland want to make a second substitution here with only 4 minutes to go. I was saying that England's European Championship hopes are dying here. I suppose if we were to beat the Soviet Union heavily and the Republic of Ireland were to do us a favour and win their 2 matches, there may be a mathematical hope that we could still qualify, but I'll leave that to the mathematicians back at home, because certainly with 2 defeats it would take a miracle, and for the moment Van Basten is getting a tremendous ovation as he's replaced by Wilbert Sovrijn, number 18. Gary Stevens. Jimmy Hill.
It's not very pleasant, really, sitting here, seeing the remnants of the England team playing out the last few minutes, because really Hoddle is having no influence. He's running, making a challenge there, but it's a token challenge. some of the players have lost their way entirely, and those that haven't have probably run out of energy or inspiration at this stage. But we've seen a fine game of football, won by skill. And to lose is not necessarily the end of the world. But nevertheless, there will be questions asked at the end of this championship. Not the least of them, will things get worse in years to come unless we rejoin the European scene?
We only have 2 minutes left here, but Gary Lineker's not giving up the ghost yet. Here's Barnes. I think that may well be a corner to England, which just gives us a flicker of hope. Now then, Mark Wright, Tony Adams, Mark Haitley. Can one of them convert this corner by John Barnes? It's too long for everybody, including Brian Robson. Good job, Hoddle got that away from Hullet. England having to throw everybody forward now. This is Barnes. Too long for Haitley. The danger is that when you have to chase a game like England have now, with almost an impossible task on hand, the Dutch could always manipulate an opening on the break and make the gap between the two teams look rather bigger than it really is.
Well, it looks to be the end of the day for England. They have to play Russia come what may, or the Soviet Union on Saturday. And our hopes, I suppose, will turn to the other players who play in the Football League and in the Scottish League with the green shirts of Ireland as the representatives, for us to cheer along the way, hopefully to a semi-final place, because barring 10,000 miracles, it isn't going to be England. There'll be a lot of talk about changing the England manager. At the moment, the FA have said quite conclusively that they're standing by his contract for the World Cup.
There's Haitley.
But whether the pressure that he's been under in 2 successive tournaments will, at the end of the day, be more pressure than a man should honestly withstand, will be seen in a month or two.
Hoddle with the corner. Haitley's in there. So is Wright. And Van Aale for Holland, who break away with stoppage time now being played, and Holland leading by 3-1. This is Sovrine. And now Hullet. The 10,000 miracles, I think we'd have to see the Republic of Ireland defeat Holland and the Soviet Union, and England would have to have a very good win in their 3rd match for that mathematical improbability to happen. Koeman heads the ball back, because we are definitely now moving towards our 2nd defeat in this championship. It's only a matter of stoppage time, and there's not much of that. Holland have beaten England by 3-1 here in Dusseldorf. The man who scored the 3 goals, brought in by Rinus Michels today, Marco van Basten, not on the pitch at the end, but on the pitch when it mattered, to produce a fine personal performance, which in many, many ways, his elusive presence in the penalty area, the difference between the two teams. England walk off disappointed, having played well for half an hour, having recovered well to make it 1-1, but then the game went away from them, and as Jimmy Hill said, it was the Dutch that had the extra gear and perhaps a little bit of extra quality in the penalty area that made the final score on Peter Shilton's 100th appearance. Holland 3, England 1.